Hi Prep 4, I've just come off from our Zoom assembly where lots of you were dressed up as evacuees. It was really nice to see all the effort that you'd gone to, and a big thank you to the children who either acted in role as an evacuee or asked really good questions as well. It was really super. So I'm going to continue with our class book, Friend or Foe now. We have 2 chapters to go, so we're going to get it finished this week. And we ended last week on chapter 6, which was where Davy and Tucky had just stolen some more food to take to the German soldiers. However, when they got to the hideout, they realised that the German soldiers were no longer there. Jip, Mr. Reynolds' dog, was also missing as well. So we are on chapter 7, page 99, if you're following at home. The boys stood in the drizzle, calling and whistling for Jip, and then from high up on the hills came a familiar barking. It seemed to be coming from the cairn, a massive pile of granite rocks that dominated the valley like some prehistoric fortress. Tucky whistled again, and back came Jip's reassuring bark. And then they saw him, standing up on the cairn against the sky, his body shaking as he barked. Tucky set off up the hill with David in close pursuit, and Jip jumped down from the rocks and bounced down towards them, tail bobbing, tongue hanging out. It was a long climb up. They had to make frequent detours to find the safest way to the top, zigzagging up the hill towards the cairn. Jip could climb where they could not and ran on ahead, turning every so often to make sure they were following. Tucky stopped to catch his breath and shouted up, "You up there? We got you some food!" For some moments there was no response. "Come up!" It was the German's voice from behind the rocks. There was no doubt about that. Tucky waited for David and they went on up together. It was a small grassy clearing encircled by great boulders, and in one corner a great granite slab had fallen across the walls to form a roof. It reminded David of pictures he'd seen of Stonehenge, only smaller. One German was lying down under the roof, covered in blankets, and the other stood beside him, stroking Jip. "We thought you'd gone," Tucky said. "You didn't tell us you were moving." "The plane came over yesterday," he said. "I thought it could have seen us. It was a good thing. There were soldiers out yesterday, just the other side of the river. We are safe here now." David was looking at the other airman, who was struggling to sit up. "Your friend, is he worse?" "Not good, not good. He is very ill. You have brought the brandy?" "Whiskey," said David. "There was no brandy." He handed him the bottle. "Thank you, my friend." The German's face broke into a half smile. "It will be a help." He was even paler than the day before, and his beard had grown darker. He knelt down beside his friend and helped him to sit up. He tilted the bottle and the boys watched the injured German drink it as if it was water. Twice his whole body was shaken by violent coughing fits, but still he came back for more, until finally he pushed it away. He leant back against the rocks and nodded at the 2 boys and smiled his thanks. Tucky put the pillowcase down inside the shelter and stood back. "We won't bring any more," David said suddenly when they had finished emptying the pillowcase. They ate on as if he had said nothing, ripping open the tins of corned beef and shoveling the meat directly from the tins into their mouths. David said it louder. "We have done enough. There won't be any more. You understand?" The German nodded as he finished his mouthful and wiped his mouth with the back of his sleeve. "You have done more than enough. It is good that we can help each other in these sad times. It is good." "We only did it because you helped us," David said. "That's all. We're still enemies." "No, I don't think so." He looked up at them and smiled. "I am wearing the uniform of your enemy, but we are not enemies, not anymore." "We must take Jip now," David said, wanting it to be over. "We were sent out to find Jip. We've got to get it back." The airman got to his feet slowly, holding out his hand to stop them. "Please," he said, "there is one last thing." "No!" David was almost shouting. "It's finished. I've paid you back, haven't I? We won't do any more. Do you understand? No more." "Please." The German took a step closer and the boys backed away. "We want no more food. No more anything." "Come on, Tucky." David turned to go. I'm going. I want you to take my friend back with you, said the German quietly, as your prisoner. He has agreed. He is not well enough to go with me over the moor. I hoped food and warmth would help, but it hasn't. He wishes to go with you as your prisoner. You want us to take him? Hand him over to the army? Tucky said. Pictures of him leading a captured German pilot through the village, with crowds cheering and church bells pealing, came swarming into his mind. Their faces, the look on their faces. How far is it? The German asked. How far? David was still trying to take it in. To your home, your village. It's not our home exactly, he said. We're evacuees. From London, mister, to get away from the bombs, Tucky answered for him. The man nodded knowingly and looked hard at David. From London. I am sorry, my friends. Perhaps when you are older you will understand that we all do things we know we should not do, but perhaps you have already learnt that. David looked away. It takes over an hour, he said, but it is downhill most of the way. To begin with, I will go with you. Gert, my friend, he cannot walk too far. I will come to help carry him. He is a big man, too heavy for you, I think. You will take him. We will, won't we, Davy? Tucky was eager. All right, David said, but no one must see you. You won't make it, you know. Make it? Over the moor, it's 13 miles of hills, bogs and rivers, and the army trains all over it. They'll catch you, and if they don't, the moor will kill you. Will you tell them about me? David shook his head. There's no need. Mr. Reynolds says no one can cross the moor from north to south without a map or a compass, and without knowing the moor. You'll never do it. In plains, we navigate by the stars, he said. The moor may be big, but it's not as big as the sky. I will try anyway. I have to try. If you were away from home and you wanted to get back, you would try, wouldn't you? They started off down the hill, Jip prancing on ahead, sniffing at every rabbit hole. Tucky carried both the blankets over his shoulder and kept looking round every few yards to make sure the two Germans were still behind. David stuffed the pillowcase inside his jumper and wondered how they were going to explain away the blankets to Mr. Reynolds. The deception was getting too complicated. Something must go wrong. He was sure of it. The boys found themselves walking too fast for the airmen, who needed to stop to rest from time to time. The injured one was being carried, slung over his friend's shoulder in a fireman's lift. David and Tucky sat down on a rock to wait for them to catch up. It was still drizzling, and the German found it difficult to keep his feet as he came down towards them. He plodded on past them, and David saw the effort on his face and a look of grim determination. What are we going to say? David had made up his mind. We bumped into them by accident. No need to lie any more, Tucky. That's just it, Tucky went on. There's two of them, and we're only bringing one of them in. What are you going to do about the other one? Are we going to tell them, or what? I don't know. David got up and followed the Germans. David stopped them when they reached the low stone wall that separated the moor from the farm, and here the airman lowered his friend gently onto his feet. They talked to each other briefly in German and then shook hands solemnly. You will look after him, please, he said. He needs a doctor. You will make sure he has a doctor? Course we will, Tucky said excitedly. Course we will, won't we, Davy? And David nodded his agreement. So he is your prisoner now? And he felt deep inside the inside of his coat and pulled back out the black revolver. You will need this, he said, handing it to David. It was cold and heavy, heavier than David had imagined. It was loaded, but the safety catch was on. Be careful with it, please. David balanced it in his hand and gripped the butt, his finger curling round the trigger. I could make you come too, he said. Of course, Davy, the man nodded, but friends do not use guns on each other. He held out his hand to David. David looked down at the outstretched hand and took it. Goodbye, Davy, and you too, Tucky. Auf Wiedersehen. Bye, said David. Good luck, Tucky shouted after him. But the German was striding away into the rain, head bent forward, the collar of his coat turned up to cover his neck.